I knew I was never going to find another person like my wife, but I missed that companionship.
Walter Zeudel's life had already required him to navigate obstacles most people will never face. A spinal cord injury left him dependent on a wheelchair. Mobility that others take for granted became, for him, a daily negotiation with physical limitation. And yet he had built a life. 13 years of marriage to a woman he described without hesitation as his soulmate. Laura was not merely his wife. She was his anchor in a world that often treats disability as disqualification. When Laura died in 2010, Walter lost more than a partner. He lost the person who saw past the wheelchair. The person who chose him not despite his limitations but alongside them. Grief, for anyone, is isolating. But for someone whose mobility is already restricted, whose social world is already narrowed by physical barriers, the isolation compounds. The walls close in. He waited a few years before attempting to date again. This patience suggests not impulsiveness but caution. Walter understood that he would never replace Laura. He was not searching for a duplicate. He was searching for presence, someone to talk to, someone to laugh with during good times and lean on during difficult ones. These are not extravagant desires. They are fundamental human needs. Online dating offered Walter something the physical world often denied him: access. On a screen, the wheelchair recedes. The first impression is not shaped by mobility aids or accessibility concerns. It is shaped by words, by photographs, by the careful construction of identity that digital platforms allow. For Walter, this was not deception. It was opportunity. A chance to be seen as a person before being seen as a disability. The woman he met claimed to be a former personal support worker. This detail is significant. Personal support workers assist people with disabilities. They understand the challenges. They possess patience and empathy as professional requirements. For Walter, this background would have signaled compatibility. Someone who would not be frightened or inconvenienced by his needs. Someone who already understood. After 6 months of online conversation, they agreed to meet in person. Walter described this moment with painful clarity. When you're in a wheelchair and you find somebody you think that finds you attractive, you think you've basically hit the gold mine. This is not naivety. This is the reality of dating with a disability. The pool of potential partners shrinks. Rejection comes more frequently. And when acceptance appears, it carries weight that the able-bodied rarely understand.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, an Oshawa man says after his wife died, he tried online dating. He met a woman and says over a period of 4 years, he gave her $300,000, and now he's afraid he will lose his home. Walter Zeutel uses a wheelchair due to a spinal cord injury. He was married for 13 years and says he was heartbroken when his wife Laura died in 2010.
When they tell you that you've met your soulmate, she was definitely my soulmate.
Zeutel says after a few years, he decided to try online dating to meet someone.
I knew I was never going to find another person like my wife, but I missed that companionship, the person to talk to, to laugh with when you're having good times and talk to when you're having sad times.
He met a woman who said she was a former personal support worker, and after 6 months of chatting online, they agreed to meet.
When you're in a wheelchair and you find somebody you think that's not in a wheelchair that finds you attractive, you think you've basically hit the gold mine.
Before long, he says she started asking for money.
Gradually, she started asking for money for this and for that with little things, and gradually the amounts got more and more.
Zeutel says over a period of 4 years, he bought her a car, paid for several operations, and kept sending her money until he was almost completely broke. Zeutel says he was financially independent and never had any money problems until he met the woman through the online dating website, and now he's terrified he could lose this home.
Over total, I'm in debt over $300,000 now. Like, the house is remortgaged, my credit cards are maxed out, I've got 3 lines of credit.
Now he's not sure where the woman is. She no longer returns his calls or emails.
I told her, I said, I need this money back, it's like.
The extraction followed a pattern that romance scam investigators recognize immediately. It began small, minor requests, modest amounts that could be rationalized as the normal give and take of any relationship. A loan here, assistance there. Nothing that would trigger alarm in a person who believed he had found genuine connection. But gradually, the amounts increased. A car, medical operations, The requests accumulated over 4 years, each one building on the foundation of the previous ones. Walter had already given money. To refuse now would mean acknowledging that the earlier gifts had been mistakes. It would mean confronting the possibility that the relationship itself was a construction designed to exploit him. Continuation became easier than confrontation. This is the psychological trap at the center of long-term romance fraud. Each transfer creates what behavioral economists call a sunk cost. Money already spent cannot be recovered, but the human mind resists accepting loss. It seeks to justify past decisions by continuing the pattern that created them. Walter was not simply giving away money. He was defending his own judgment. He was protecting his belief that he had found someone real. The financial architecture of his loss reveals the totality of the damage. His house, likely his largest asset and the physical space that accommodated his disability, has been remortgaged. The equity he had built over years of ownership, the security that property represents, has been converted into debt. His credit cards are maxed. 3 lines of credit have been opened and exhausted. Every available source of funds has been tapped and drained. Walter had been financially independent. He had never experienced money problems. This history makes the current situation more devastating, not less. He had proven his ability to manage resources responsibly. The debt he now carries is not the result of poor judgment accumulated over a lifetime. It is the result of targeted exploitation by someone who identified his vulnerability and systematically extracted everything he had. The woman no longer returns his calls or emails. This silence is the final confirmation. The relationship that had seemed to offer companionship and understanding has revealed itself as a transaction. Once the funds were exhausted, the connection ended. Walter served his purpose. He has nothing left to give.
It's like, I can't just keep giving you this money.
Zutel says he may only be a month away from losing his house.
I'm scared, I'm upset, I'm sad. I cried myself to sleep almost every night. Like I said, I just wanted some companionship. I'm just praying for a miracle.
Walter Zutel cries himself to sleep almost every night. This detail should not be passed over quickly. It is not a figure of speech. It is a description of what happens when darkness falls and the full weight of loss becomes impossible to avoid. The silence that once held grief for Laura now holds grief for everything else. The money, the home, the trust, the hope. He is a month away from losing his house, the structure that accommodates his wheelchair, the space he has adapted to his needs, the last physical remnant of the independence he once possessed. If it goes, Walter will be forced to navigate a housing market that rarely considers accessibility. He will search for shelter as a disabled man in debt, with no savings, damaged credit, and a story that sounds, to those who have not lived it, like the result of foolish choices. He says he is praying for a miracle. This is not optimism. It is the language of someone who has exhausted all rational avenues and has nothing left but faith. The police have been notified. The fraud center has been contacted. The woman has disappeared. The money exists now only as numbers on statements documenting its departure. Walter wanted companionship. He wanted someone to talk to laugh with, to share the ordinary moments that become meaningful when witnessed by another person. He wanted what Laura had given him. What he received instead was a 4-year performance designed to strip him of everything he had built. He was not foolish. He was lonely. And loneliness, when it is deep enough, becomes its own form of disability, one that no wheelchair can represent and no accommodation can address.